Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Little and you're listening to the Filmmaking Friends Podcast, episode number 3. Today we'll be hanging out with full-time filmmaker, YouTuber, and good friend, Mr. DEVIN Supertramp. Now, I don't know much about YouTube. In fact, pretty much nothing. But Devin, he's the pro. So we're going to talk to him about that and all the other great things he's been working on. And hey, we got another great giveaway as well. Hey, so you and I, we've known each other for a while now.
Couple years.
A couple years. We actually got the opportunity, I think, to really work together. It was a thing you were doing for Canon. It was a World War II thing where all the soldiers had Canon cameras.
Uh-huh.
That was crazy. And I didn't understand showing up. I kind of understood the concept when I showed up for it, but all of the soldiers had Canon cameras. And then literally there was, I don't know how many camera guys there were. I got to shoot one of the cameras. There was like another 12 of us or something.
Yeah.
Everywhere you looked, there was a camera. It was like insane. And I don't know how many people were filming, but it was like, he must have had so much footage after that.
Yeah, there definitely was a ton of people there. And that was the passion project. We had actually at that time reached out to Canon and said, hey, we're doing this video. Is there any way that you guys could hook us up with all of your cameras, even like the big 800 millimeter lenses and stuff like that? And they were gracious enough to do that. But yeah, it was a fun project back in the day.
And the video turned out, it was awesome. It was a great video. So I guess I should actually start by saying that if you don't know who DEVIN Supertramp is, you must obviously don't know what YouTube is. I think that's fair to say. But he's got a huge YouTube channel. I think you've got at least 4.5 to 5 million followers. Maybe you know the exact number. I'm not sure what it is, but it's millions. And you've worked for a lot of clients like Canon, like I just mentioned, Subaru, Ubisoft. I know you've worked with big studios like Warner Brothers and Universal Studios. You've done a lot and you've kept very busy. You have I don't know how many videos do you have you've done now on your
roughly
channel?
On YouTube, we have about 250.
That's crazy.
There's been a couple. We do one for the most part every week. Occasionally we'll do one every other week or every 1 in 3 weeks kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. So without getting going too far back in time or getting too detailed, I'm just curious, when did you decide that you wanted to be a filmmaker for a living? Do you remember the moment or the movie or the thing that inspired you to make that choice?
I generally say once I was a baby, and I just say that for the fact that my dad had a camera, and ever since they can remember, I was always picking up their little dinky camcorder and filming videos. There's usually Lego stop motion videos, a lot of music videos with my siblings, and James Bond kind of action things as little kids do, So since I can remember, but I say as far as wanting to pursue it seriously as a career, I can remember distinctly in high school, being in love with photography and the cinematography, and then just kind of taking it from there, going to college for the exact same thing for filmmaking specifically.
Yeah. So originally you wanted to be a film director, to do feature films. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, originally, as far as college goes, it was to be a cinematographer, director of photography.
Oh.
A lot of people don't know that. I'm still a very quiet, conserved person, and I'm not very vocal, especially in college. And I was terrified to speak. So once I went to college, I was I don't have a voice. I was afraid to even speak. So I was I could be a really good cinematographer there. So I put my focus on there. And then I just always relied on other people because I was always afraid to speak out. And then after college, I ended up dropping out my last year to kind of pursue the social media thing. And when that happened, I realized that I do have a voice and that my voice does matter, and that there's power with building an audience where your voice can be heard. So there's definitely a big shift that kind of happened that wasn't part of the plan.
Right.
But definitely as far as just trying different things, and I found out, I actually do love directing, and it is something that I can do and communicate.
Well, what's interesting about that, I didn't realize that you originally started out with a desire to be a cinematographer, because that's actually the exact same thing that I did. I wanted to be a cinematographer. I went to film school, shot lots of videos for other students, built my body of work up for my reel. And then I had a couple ideas for some short films, and I'm like, well, I don't want to pay for it for somebody else to direct it, so I'll try to do both. I mean, I've watched the directors doing it, so I'll try. And then someone said, hey, you should direct. That was really good. And so then that turned into more directing. I still shoot just like you sometimes too, but yeah, it's just interesting. We kind of took the same path in some ways. That's kind of cool.
I think one thing that kind of gave us an advantage, or at least that's how I feel about me, is I was shooting everybody's senior projects. So I was working with every different director. So I was learning something new from each person I was working with, because everyone at film school wants to be a director, but they don't get a lot of experience working on other people's shoots and seeing kind of how they do things. So I felt like it gave me an advantage just working with so many different people.
Yeah, I totally totally agree. When you're a DP and then you decide to become a director, you have the training of watching the good and the bad habits of other people. So you're like, oh,
Absolutely.
that one I'm definitely doing. Oh, that one I'm not going to do. You
Right,
know?
for sure.
Right, yeah. So so you decide to make, to become a YouTuber, and I know that has a lot to do with. If I remember you telling me before, because we've talked about this on set, you had a roommate, Jeff, right? And you guys did something for Orabrush or something like that. Isn't that kind of near the beginning of the YouTube world for you?
Yeah,
Sort of?
YouTube was never part of the plan. It was always to do these big Hollywood, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, like big budget movies. But my roommate at the time, Jeff Harmon, he was like, YouTube's going to be the next big thing. This is around 2009-ish.
Right.
And he was like, hey, I want this company to get started. Will you do the first couple videos? We did the first video. It was Orabrush was a tongue cleaner out of all things. And I was like, oh, I'm a filmmaker. I don't really want to do tongue cleaner videos. But it ended up blowing up. And I think it got like 18 million plus views and ended up selling millions and millions of product. So that kind of opened my eyes as far as the power of social media, using YouTube, Facebook to kind of launch a product and tell stories.
Yeah. And side note there, I was actually given an Orabrush by those guys, and I actually kind of digged it.
I still use mine to this day.
Dude, it's a good tool. It's good to have one of those. So you start the YouTube channel, and the first, I had met you before. I think you had started the channel, but the first video that I saw where I was just like, what is this? Was the big, huge swing on the arch.
Yep.
Now, that wasn't necessarily your first YouTube video, but that was one that went pretty viral.
Yeah, that was like the first 10 videos that we were doing. And at that time, we're doing everything on a $0 budget. The first 10 videos I was shooting, I didn't even own a camera. I was borrowing other people's Canon DSLR cameras. But yeah, that was definitely one of the bigger ones that blew up. I want to say within a couple days, or I would say like 5 days, it had already hit like 7 million views. People from all around the world were contacting me, and they're like, hey, we'd love to hire you to do commercials, this or that. So it just opened up so many different opportunities that I wasn't expecting, which I had no issues with.
Yeah. So at the beginning, when you're trying to figure out what your brand is, I guess, for lack of a better word, like, was there a lot of trial and error? Were you like, okay, am I going to tell like action adventure? Am I going to did you try to try different things to figure out what your niche was going to be?
Yeah, definitely a lot of trial and error. The biggest thing for me is if you looked at my YouTube channel, the very first thing we ever uploaded, or one of the second thing maybe, was a narrative that I shot at film school. And sadly, narratives as far as short form stories generally don't do super well on social media. They're not as shareable. They're more things you sit down with Netflix or Hulu. That's what people expect. So those videos never perform very well. That's what I'm most passionate about. So I just kind of was just doing things that I kind of grew up doing as far as extreme sports stuff. I grew up doing snowboarding, so I love working with athletes. So we were just doing kind of random funny things that normally you wouldn't expect. Instead of a rope swing from a swing, you're doing it from a 200-foot arch. And because of that, because it was very unique, very original, it ended up kind of blowing up and giving us that success to kind of get us to the next level.
Now that you've done this for a long time, you probably know the ins and outs of YouTube and all that kind of stuff pretty good. Is there an ideal length for a video? Do people tune out after 10 minutes, or what's the hot zone for a good video?
Yeah, so with analytics, with YouTube, Google, they kind of kill it with the statistics where we can track every little thing. And for us, generally speaking, at the 2 to 2 minute and 20 second mark, that's when people start slowly tuning out.
Really?
Facebook is a completely different story. Facebook, you have to do everything you can to grab people because everyone there has super ADD compared to just partial ADD. Right. Facebook's a different story where you have about 20 to 30 seconds to hold people's attention. So that's why when you're creating content for Facebook, we treat it differently. And I'd say, and I think it's worth mentioning in this, is when we started on social media, the focus was on YouTube. That has shifted, and now our focus is mostly on Facebook. Just because of algorithm shifts, we kind of, to stay in the game, you have to play the game. So we've kind of had to move over to Facebook, where that's kind of our bread and butter right now.
Yeah, I guess if you don't kind of embrace technology and how things are moving, you just get run over by it, right? So,
absolutely, almost instantly.
Yeah, so you gotta be on top of it, and you gotta kind of go where the trends and things are going. So I didn't realize you had made the shift kind of a little bit to Facebook. I didn't even realize that. So I'll have to play catch up.
Yeah, definitely play catch up, because if you go onto YouTube, if you're not uploading daily content, that's who they favor. And for people that are doing kind of bigger stories compared to just talking to the camera, kind of doing the vlogging style stuff, you can't do it daily. So Facebook just favors good content compared to daily content. So that's why a big part of why we've had a shift over.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very cool. So you've traveled all over the world to shoot all these great videos with clients and sometimes passion projects, like you said. A lot of times you go to Hawaii because it's obviously an awesome place to film. When you go out and do most of the videos, what's the team like? I mean, it's not just you, right? It can't just be just you. It's a few other people at least, right? So who's on your team? How many people is that?
Yeah, so we have about 4 or 5, and it kind of shifts as far as full time. Carter, he's our like main producer. He is our producer. He produces most of what we do. We have another guy, Tyson, incredible cinematographer. He actually just kind of moved on to something else. But we also have another guy named Brandon and a guy named Zane who all kill it. Half of them went to film school, half of them didn't. For me, a lot of times people think, oh, you have to get a full education. For me, it was just bringing on people that were super passionate about it and also super willing to learn. But that's our core team. But based on where we're going, where we're traveling, it always kind of shifts. We actually did a big video in France with Adam Abel, who you work with on a
my business
almost
partner.
day-to-day basis. So like for that one, it was like, okay, we need castles, all these moving parts. And we knew Adam had produced a lot of stuff out there. So we reached out to him. And then we hired a bunch of other people out there. And I want to say it was a cast and crew of around 30 people. So every project is a completely different situation. If we have a budget, we love to kind of go all out with it. If we don't, it's usually a 1 to 2 man show.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about the trip that you guys did to France it was for History Channel, right?
Channel? For History Channel.
Yeah, for their Nights show, which I forgot the name of. But yeah, that's right. Adam and I had shot a Joan of Arc documentary at that same castle where you guys filmed just a year or two before you. So yeah, of course, Adam knew exactly where to take you guys. It's awesome, right?
Yeah, it was incredible. And he just worked everything out perfectly. So yeah, just bringing on the right people for the right job. And we try not to think, oh, we have to do everything in-house. It's like, okay, this project makes a lot more sense to use someone who knows that knowledge and can kill it that way. So it worked out great.
Yeah. So how do you handle post? Because you're constantly making content, and I know this well as you do. When you make your own content and you edit your own content, you spend more time editing than you do shooting. So you can't possibly do all the editing yourself, or do you?
No, when I started the early days, it was pretty much just me as a one-man show. But at that time, I was releasing much smaller scale videos. And I'd say we're releasing about one video every other week to every 3 weeks. Now, everyone on our team, even our producer Carter, we all edit. And then when we get too much content coming at once, then we'll kind of outsource that to other editors. And there's probably 3 or 4 other editors that we use outside of our own team.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, with the amount of workflow that you have to go through, you couldn't possibly do it all by yourself. There's just
a big project we just did. We did it with Warner Brothers. We filmed in Abu Dhabi. They just opened the world's biggest indoor amusement park. And for they had to premiere the video at the grand opening, which was happening the day after we got done filming. So we were editing it as we were filming and sending it to our music guy, sending it to our sound guy. So each project is a completely different situation. That one we're editing it as we were shooting, which isn't obviously ideal.
Sure. But you got to do what you got to do, right? So tell me a little bit about your weapon of choice, your camera that you use, because it's obviously changed to some degree, or maybe it hasn't. You use a Red now, don't you?
Yep, we started with a Canon 5D Mark II, and then we upgraded to a Mark III, then a 1DX, and then we took the step to 6K, and we got a Red Dragon, and now we own We own a Red Monstro 8K camera, and then we own a Red Weapon Super 35 millimeter camera as well. So those are our 2 workhorses that we use now. We've used those for the last 2 years.
Now, and do you run that with a Canon mount lens, or do you run it with primes, or what are you running on the lens front?
Yeah, so for our $0 budget stuff, where we are more running gun, we're just using Canon L series lenses. Canon 11-24, Canon 16-35, and 24-70 are my 3 top favorite lenses as far as that goes. Right. And then for our more cinematic stuff, we actually just bought, about 3 months ago, we bought Leica Summilux lenses. We got 6 of those, so that was a big investment on our end. But we wanted to have the same tools to compete with Hollywood. Essentially, we didn't want anything kind of slowing us down. And for us, we just treat our shoots completely different when we're using those kind of cine lenses.
Yeah. So are you running, I know obviously you have your own glide cam, right? And you actually have your model of glide cam, which is out there. And I'm sure a lot of people that follow you and get tips from you probably have your glide cam, right?
Yep.
Which you actually showed me at NAB has different features than some of the other models that they have. But you put that red brain on that glide cam, and that camera's got to be heavier than the Canon. So you must have one really buff arm.
You'd think so, but I'm actually like super puny. And then when I'm filming, I'll switch to the other hand or the other arm, so it's not disproportionate or anything like that. And then whenever we're using the cine lenses, because we're using a full like wireless setup, matte box and stuff like that, we won't be running the glide cam system there, just because it is actually too heavy for me, or probably for most people. But when we're just using Canon lenses, not using the big setups with matte boxes, wireless follow focus, the run and gun, I'm always using the glide cam.
And so when you use the glide cam with, the run and gun scenario, how are you keeping it in focus? Because obviously, like when you do it the bigger system, you can have an AC on a remote focus unit or whatever, but how are you keeping everything in focus?
Yeah, so I'll just keep the same distance from the actor, from the person that I'm filming, and then I'll run in really fast and change focus, and obviously that's the part that we're cutting out anyways. And I love wide angle shots. A lot of locations we're filming at are like right out there on location and beautiful vistas and stuff like that. So a lot of times we'll be shooting wide angles as well, which kind of hides a lot of that out of focus compared to like a 50 millimeter lens.
Oh, sure. So a lot of times when you're doing the run and gun, you're usually like on a 16 or something pretty wide.
Yep, 16 and 35. And then, we'll still do a lot of close-ups on people, but I'm just always keeping the same distance from them.
Yeah. So you're looking kind of for the hyperfocal distance, the maximum amount of distance on that lens. If I set the lens to 3 feet and I'm at a T8, everything from 2.5 to infinity is in focus, and we just go. Is that the mindset?
Exactly. That's the mindset.
Nice. Well, that works really well. So let me ask you this question. So social media, you just mentioned that you're starting to like really push on Facebook, which I understand. Are you also like using or have to use like Twitter and Instagram to promote people to see the videos where they're posted on Facebook and YouTube? Is that a big part of it too?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say in order as far as our kind of bread and butter, Facebook's our number one, YouTube's our number two, then Instagram, and then Twitter is our fourth. We do have a Pinterest account, but we haven't done much with that. But definitely, like if you want to stay consistent with the social media world, you have to be on as many platforms as possible. And with that being said, though, like that alone, just one of those platforms is a full-time job. So we have one guy on our team, Brandon, who just runs our Facebook page. Sometimes we'll step in and help, but generally speaking, he's kind of running that almost as a full-time job. So it's definitely something that takes a lot of focus and a lot of time.
Obviously, this is your bread and butter. This is what you do, and you do it really well and do it all the time. Are there still aspirations to do something long format, feature something? In your heart, in your mind?
That's 100% still the goal, still the mindset. We did work with YouTube Red for a while to try and launch a series, a long form. It was going to be 6 30-minute episodes. That ended up sadly falling through. So we're working on other stuff right now. We're shifting things because the sad thing is as a filmmaker, once you do a car commercial, you become a car commercial director, and that's what people expect. And we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves in the action sports stuff, and now we're slowly trying to merge out of that. But once we do just a full-on narrative, it's almost too foreign for our audience. So we're trying to take baby steps where it still has action in it, but it also has a story, has real actors. A video we're coming out in a couple of weeks. It's more of a long form. It's a 10-minute narrative that we did that we're like super proud of, super stoked on. And it's kind of our own passion project. But for us, it's doing those bigger stories, and then eventually getting down to Netflix, Amazon, and then eventually feature films would be like the bigger picture 5 years from now.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I'd say Jurassic Park is probably the most influential movie for me. Jurassic Park and E.T. I just remember seeing Jurassic Park in theaters and having my mind blown, and then thinking dinosaurs were real, and just been so inspired by that. So that's a big part of, I feel, what made me who I am as far as within the filmmaking world. But Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, anything he makes, Dark Knight, Inception, Interstellar, like I'm so inspired by that. And J.J. Abrams, anything he touches as well.
Yeah, I think all those guys have made a few movies, so those are good guys to follow.
Uh-huh.
I think for me it was Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was a kid. I just love that movie. But those are all great movies that you mentioned. Those are all awesome filmmakers, and definitely inspiring things that they've made for sure. So let's see, what else was I going to ask you? Well, so is it worth people still to make YouTube channels? I guess if they're vloggers?
Yeah, it's still worth it regardless. And I think of it like any content you create, it belongs on all the platforms, but you just treat it differently. So something, for example, is we'll edit a video for YouTube, and then we'll edit it differently for Facebook, where we'll show you like the coolest clips at the start for Facebook. So each platform it hits a different audience. At the end of the day, when I want to show people something I'm proud of, I send them to YouTube because the compression looks a lot better. So it kind of depends on what we're doing, but as many platforms that you can be on. The issue now is there's so much noise out there. There's so many creators. Everyone that has a phone is a creator now. So you have a lot of people that try and speak louder than. So as many platforms that you can be, as long as you're producing quality content or content that you're proud of, that you feel is kind of represents you, I think it belongs on every platform.
Okay. And it stands out, right? It stands out from other people's stuff.
Yep.
The quality of what they're looking at, how well it's edited, how efficient it is, the pacing, all of that goes into making it look more slick, and people are like, this is the better video to watch, I guess.
Absolutely. Because a lot of times too, our YouTube channel has changed significantly as far as it's not getting the same views as it used to. Our Facebook is still killing it, but YouTube has shifted. But with that being said, like we may have a video that only gets like 100,000 views compared to like 10 million views, but it's still being seen by the right people, by filmmakers. And a lot of times we're getting hired by even these videos that don't perform super well because they love the quality of the content.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that totally makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, it's all about, in some ways, it's about quality over quantity, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It really comes down to it. And, well, that's cool. Well, Devin, I appreciate your time today to talk about these things. Give me a little more insight into the world of what you do and how you do it. Tell people where they can find you on social media. Let's start with YouTube.
Yeah, so just type in Devin Supertramp. You'll see all of our content pop up. We also have a behind the scenes channel called Devin Graham, where we release kind of all the behind the scenes and how we make our content. And then across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, it's all Devin Supertramp as well.
Awesome. And guys, if you have any questions for me, you can reach me through my Instagram page, which is just RyanLittle_director. Just send me a direct message. So before we wrap this up, we do have a giveaway. If you've ever seen a Devin Graham video, or say Devin Graham Supertramp. I always want to, the problem is I know your real last name, and so it's like I switch it back and forth.
It gets confusing. People are always like, is that your real last name, Supertramp? Like, no, it's not.
It depends on what environment we're in, depends on what name I say to you. So anyway, sorry, let me start over again. If you've ever watched a Devin Supertramp video or seen him in a video, you'll know he has a baseball cap on. In fact, he even had a baseball cap on, I think, when you got married. Is that
Absolutely.
True? Yeah.
Well, for the wedding photos, but not when I actually got married. But yes, wedding photos.
Right. Yes. Anyway, we have an autographed baseball cap from Devin that you guys can get, and the way to win that is to, as I've mentioned before, is to go and give the podcast a review. We like 5 stars. You're not obligated to give 5 stars, but we certainly do like it. Give the episode a review. Mention that this is the episode that you listened to, and then a week after the episode goes live, we'll pick a winner and we will send you that awesome hat. Again, Devin, thanks so much for your time. And guys, thank you for giving the podcast a listen, and tune in again for more awesome guests. Thanks, Devin.
Thanks, guys.